We got some Hillary content coming up. What's your point today?
Yes, can't stop, won't stop. I want to start by playing some clips of Hillary Clinton on Rachel Maddow's show. Just as luck would have it, she was on Maddow's show to discuss an Atlantic op-ed she wrote recently called The Weaponization of Loneliness on Monday night as the indictment, Fani Willis's indictment against Donald Trump, was dropped. That was late at night, actually. It started coming out like 8, 9 p.m., something like that. But let's start with this first clip. It's a little bit shorter, but it's just, you can see Hillary and Rachel Maddow having a little bit of a good time as the indictment is announced.
Fancy meeting you.
Oh,
here.
I can't believe this.
Yeah, this is not the circumstances in which I expected to be talking to you.
Nor me, Rachel. It's always good to talk to you, but honestly, I didn't think that it would be under these circumstances. Yet another set of indictments.
Kayleigh McEnany on Fox News reacted to that clip just by being like, what are you doing? You're laughing at this. It's not good for the country. And obviously Kayleigh McEnany was attached to the Trump administration, so it's especially not funny if you're Kayleigh McEnany. But at the same time, she does have a point about how funny all of this is and whether or not it's a good look for Hillary Clinton, somebody who actually avoided an indictment because James Comey said, no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case against her, which was very debatable at the time. She's somebody who sort of skirted that and lost to Donald Trump, then perpetrated this fiction of Russian collusion in ways that were not tethered to a small but real problem of Russian interference in the 2016 election. This is so funny. Let me laugh in this nice MSNBC studio. It might not be the best look, but that aside, let's dive into the substance here and let's watch more of the conversation between Maddow and Clinton from Monday night.
If bad actors tell us falsely that every election is stolen and that the only way an election is trustworthy is if they come out on top of it, then something, it tells you something not just about that person or that moment. It maybe wounds us as a democracy in a way that is hard to repair. Mm-hmm. What do you think about how we get better after the wounds that have been inflicted on us through this process?
Well, I think, the truth matters. I think having these cases be brought in such professional manners, we'll see how they unfold. Obviously, the trials, if there are trials, are going to be critically important. But the article you mentioned that I published about the weaponization of loneliness really does, in my view, point to the larger cultural concerns, because the lack of trust, the divisiveness, the undermining of faith in ourselves, in each other, respect for our institutions, the rule of law, all of that has been deliberately inculcated within our body politic. There were trends before. I mean, we have seen how people have become more isolated, less community-oriented, less civically minded. Then we see how social media and technology has certainly accelerated a lot of those trends.
Okay, so Hillary Clinton is low-hanging fruit. I get that. I think it's still relevant to break down a lot of what she said there because she's representative of a class of elites who is now basically just unhappy with the world that they created. That's the big takeaway, I think, from everything Hillary Clinton just said there. She said, Rachel Maddow said, the only way, if we're in a situation where the only way people can feel comfortable with the elections, an election is stolen if they lose it. The fact that Rachel Maddow said that to Hillary Clinton earnestly, in a way that wasn't pointing the finger at Hillary Clinton, I think is remarkable. There's a huge difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in that Hillary Clinton did concede that she lost the election to Donald Trump the next day. She spent years after that casting doubt, though, on the outcome of the election, saying that Russia stole the election. Her campaign was a huge part of planting the seeds of doubt about Trump's legitimacy as president of the United States, and she continued to perpetuate the fiction of this grand, vast conspiracy, to borrow a phrase, about Donald Trump being an asset of Vladimir Putin in some very specific and very false ways. So just to start, Hillary Clinton, again, we see her being somebody that is creating a world she doesn't want to take accountability for having created. She creates this world that she's then unhappy with. I don't think she recognizes how detrimental, I shouldn't say I don't think, I know she doesn't recognize, she never could recognize how detrimental the crisis of confidence in institutions, how much her fiction, the fiction that she was in a large part responsible for about Russia collusion, how much that played into the loss of trust in institutions. By the way, it's always worth mentioning that even the birther conspiracy, which was famously perpetuated by Donald Trump, came from the Clinton campaign all the way back in 2008. I believe that was a Sidney Blumenthal special, but nevertheless, Hillary Clinton has been sowing the seeds of doubt, of distrust in our institutions for a very long time. And again, this is where the elites who are passing down the United States of 2023 to their children and their grandchildren look around and are suddenly really unhappy with the world that they've created. Although, of course, they're unwilling to take accountability for having created it. They'll take accountability for creating other things, but they won't take accountability for creating this world that they're deeply unhappy with now. I actually want to say, I'm glad that Hillary Clinton's op-ed, The Weaponization of Loneliness, that she echoed a little bit from in this Maddow interview, genuinely, I'm glad that she's pointing some fingers at civic breakdown and at technology, at loneliness, at isolation. I am genuinely very glad to hear that, because I think there are a whole lot of people who sit in those MSNBC studios, cable news studios, and don't recognize exactly how much that's crept into the everyday lives of your average American. And so, half of the battle is admitting you have a problem. So in all seriousness, I think it's fantastic that somebody like Hillary Clinton has come to the realization that there are serious trends. When this was being written about by Robert Putnam in 1980, where was Hillary Clinton when Bowling Alone came out, when What's the Matter with Kansas came out, when Coming Apart came out, all of these essential pieces of scholarship that were showing very real problems existed. What happened from the Clinton administration in the 90s? Well, we saw a lot of policy decisions that exacerbated the problems of civic breakdown in certain pockets of the country, of loneliness in certain pockets of the country. Let's just name two: NAFTA and WTO. Great for some parts of the country, very, very destabilizing for other parts of the country. Let's look at all of the tech mergers that happened during the Obama administration that Hillary Clinton was a part of. Let's talk about Section 230, which was passed by none other than Bill Clinton himself, passed into law by none other than Bill Clinton himself, that allowed tech companies, that was a piece of legislation at the time that we didn't really know where the internet was going. So it's somewhat understandable in the same way that you can look back and say, I get why there was so much excitement among elites for NAFTA and WTO. I understand, but the practical consequences have been way more serious and way more destabilizing than anybody from that sort of political establishment recognized that would be, and yet they don't want to take accountability for it, and they still blame everybody else. That's what Hillary Clinton is doing here, pointing her fingers at everybody else instead of looking around and saying, oh, maybe the regime that I led and championed for so long had something to do with this. It's also remarkable to hear her talk about the rule of law, which, as I mentioned earlier, she really just said there, rule of law. We've talked on the show over the last couple of weeks. I think pretty much everybody here at Breaking Points would be super happy if they locked up every politician who did something bad. That's not what happens. So to hear Hillary Clinton, a supporter of Joe Biden, who's overseeing, or who is the father of Hunter Biden, I should say, there are very serious implications about lack of rule of law when it comes to Hunter Biden, very serious implications about lack of rule of law when it comes to Hillary Clinton herself, when it comes to Bill Clinton. So to hear her sort of wax sanctimonious about rule of law is another example that, again, she's looking around and saying, rule of law, Donald Trump felt so comfortable flouting rule of law in all of these different cases, and Republicans are now so comfortable with Donald Trump flouting the rule of law in all of these different cases. That is so disturbing. It is, but the only reason people are doing that is because rule of law, it's sort of a fight fire with fire. That's a lot of things, and I'm not saying that's right. A lot of people on the conservative side think that's right now. I don't really agree with that in particular cases, but to see her just being like, oh my gosh, the mysterious rule of law, the breakdown in rule of law, it's just really, really too cute by half to hear that specifically from Hillary Clinton. And it's also remarkable to hear her talk about public trust for all of the reasons that we've already mentioned. So again, especially from Rachel Maddow, the journalist in this situation, to be tossing a question to Hillary Clinton about how disturbing it is that people think, it's just an election is not stolen if I win, but if I lose, then it is stolen. To hear that particularly tossed to Hillary Clinton, to hear that from a network that has platformed Stacey Abrams however many times without ever asking her the question, like, hey, maybe do you think walking around saying that you're the legitimate governor of Georgia might be sowing some seeds of distrust in ways that are very unhealthy? It's just, again, it's the world they created that they are unhappy with. So that's one. And two, it's that they're just unwilling to admit that it's the world that they created. They're unwilling to even see, recognize, understand that it's the world they created. And it's not just from these sort of abstract questions about how Hillary Clinton talked about Russia in the media. It also goes down to policy decisions that she supported. Guess who was a major donor to the Clinton Foundation? The Sackler family. Some of this stuff, tech, a donor to Hillary Clinton. Some of this stuff is concrete policy decisions that she supported: NAFTA, WTO, 230, tech mergers under Obama. I get that she wasn't in control of tech mergers, but what was she talking about when it came to all of these different decisions? Where did she disagree? I mean, this is a woman who campaigned for president in 2007, 2008, campaigned for president in 2015 and 2016. And was on the wrong side of a lot of these issues. So in addition to just sort of the bigger questions about how Hillary Clinton has discussed these issues in public in ways that are severely detrimental to public trust, the issues where she has been untruthful, where she has outright lied over and over again, that has contributed to a lack of public trust. The ways in which she has been treated by, let's say, when it comes to cases of the rule of law, her husband has been treated, the administration, the Obama administration she served under has been treated. These are all really serious, and they have all contributed over time to places in the country that are super supportive of Donald Trump, maybe because they bore the brunt of WTO and NAFTA in ways that other parts of the country didn't. Hillary Clinton famously on stage in India bragged about how she won in 2016 states with the highest GDP, as though all those places that are unproductive, that is just, who would want to win those states anyway? Who would want to be popular in those states anyway? That's for people like Donald Trump. So it just comes back to this lack of accountability, Ryan.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.